My name is Nina. 6 months ago, I finalized my divorce, a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. As I sit in my new apartment, surrounded by the quiet and the city sounds seeping through the window, I can't help but reflect on the journey that led me here. It all started with a seemingly ordinary evening. I came home to find my husband, Ethan, sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine. "We need to talk," he said. Those words sent a shiver down my spine, but I had no idea just how much my world was about to shatter. By the end of that conversation, he looked me in the eye and said, "I left a better woman for you." Maybe that was my mistake. The room fell silent, and I stared at him in disbelief. I felt as if the ground had suddenly given way beneath me. After a moment, I said softly, "Then go fix your mistake." And with that, I walked out of the house. I got in my car and drove aimlessly for about 40 minutes, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. His words played over and over in my mind, like a cruel refrain. A better woman. Not a mistake, not a bad moment. A better woman. I ended up at my sister's place. She opened the door without a word, just pulled me into a hug and said, "You can take the guest room." Her kindness almost broke me. I turned off my phone, craving the silence and the chance to sort through my jumbled thoughts. But around midnight, curiosity got the better of me. I turned my phone back on, and there were 21 missed calls and 14 text messages from Ethan. "Where are you? We're not done talking." This got out of hand. "I didn't mean it like that. Please come home." The last message had come in 10 minutes earlier. "We need to talk now." I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then turned the phone face down and went to sleep. The next morning, more messages awaited me. Ethan had gone from irritation to panic, even calling my sister. But I went to work, burying myself in meetings and spreadsheets, grateful for the distraction. By late afternoon, I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. I wanted the truth, all of it. So, I agreed to meet him at a quiet cafe near the office. When I saw him, he looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and a tight jaw. He immediately started saying, "I didn't mean what I said." I was angry, emotional. I replied calmly, "You didn't stumble over those words. You chose them." He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "I've just been confused." "About what?" I asked. He hesitated, then finally admitted, "I reconnected with my ex." It all started to make sense. I asked how it happened, and he said they first connected online, catching up through messages. Then, she moved back to town 3 months ago. I asked if he'd been seeing her, and he said, "Sometimes. Just coffee, lunch, talking." But when I mentioned the text I'd seen about the amazing night, his face changed. "You saw my phone?" he asked. "I saw a notification," I said. That's all it took. He tried to defend himself, saying, "It's not an affair. We haven't slept together." But I knew the truth. "But you want to," I said. He didn't answer, and that silence spoke volumes. I asked him what the plan was. "You keep me here while you figure out if she's better." "That's not fair," I snapped. He shot back, "You haven't been present in this marriage either." I was stunned. "I was here, every night, every weekend. I asked you about your day. I tried to connect. You shut me out." He said, "She understands me." That comparison was like a knife in my heart. I realized then that this wasn't a recent problem. It had started the moment he decided to measure me against a ghost from his past. I told him, "You didn't come back to her because you were confused. You came back because it was easy. Because she doesn't see who you actually are now. She only knows the version of you that exists in memory. I know the man who hides behind his phone and blames his wife for his guilt." He looked away and said, "I never meant to hurt you." But I replied, "You did. And worse, you were willing to keep doing it." For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not fear of losing me, but fear of losing the option. When I stood up to leave, he reached for my hand. "Don't make a decision like this. We can fix this," he said. I pulled my hand back and said softly, "No. You wanted to see if there was something better. Now you get to find out what life looks like without me." That night, lying in my sister's guest room, I didn't cry. I just stared at the ceiling, realizing that I hadn't been abandoned. I'd been replaced months ago and only just been told. And something inside me hardened into resolve. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I needed time to think, to plan, and to make decisions without Ethan's voice in my head. The first call I made was to a lawyer, the same one who'd handled our house closing 3 years earlier. I explained everything calmly, the emotional affair, my intent to separate, the fact that we had no children and comparable incomes. She asked, "Do you feel safe in the home right now?" It wasn't about violence, it was about boundaries. I said honestly, "No." By noon, I had answers. By 1 p.m., I had options. By 2 p.m., I'd made up my mind. That evening, I drove back to the house with a locksmith, a small moving truck, and my sister as a witness. When we pulled into the driveway, Ethan's car was there. He must have taken the day off, too. The house looked the same, but it no longer felt like home. He opened the door, and his face went from relief to confusion when he saw who I was with. "What's going on?" he asked. "I'm moving out." "This is my 30-day notice," I said evenly. He blinked in disbelief. "The house is in both our names," I continued. "We'll sort that out through lawyers, but I'm not living here anymore." He said, "You're doing this because of one argument?" I stepped inside, my heart steady. "I'm doing this because you told me marrying me was a mistake, because you're emotionally involved with your ex, and because you wanted to keep me here while you decided whether she was better." He tried to argue, but I didn't listen. I walked past him and started packing my things. He followed me, pleading, "Please don't do this. I love you." I paused at the top of the stairs and said, "You love the security I provide. You love knowing I'll be here while you sort out your feelings. That's not the same thing." The movers arrived, and I packed methodically, clothes, work equipment, personal documents. I didn't touch anything we'd shared. Ethan hovered around, trying to talk, apologize, and backtrack, but I didn't engage. He finally asked, "You already hired movers? How long have you been planning this?" I replied, "Since you told me who you really wanted." After everything was loaded, I handed him a folder. "What's this?" he asked. "A lease. Month to month across town. I signed it this afternoon," I said. He stared at it, stunned. "You really thought this through?" "I had time," I said. That's when he noticed the locksmith. "What's he doing here?" he asked sharply. I met his eyes and said, "Changing the locks." He said, "You can't do that. I live here. We both own the house." I replied, "I am allowed to secure my property during a separation. You'll get new keys once we finalize temporary terms." He called it vindictive, but I said, "This is practical. There's a difference." The locksmith got to work on the front and back doors. Ethan watched, his disbelief turning to anger. As I walked out, he followed me into the driveway. "Please don't leave like this. Let's talk." "Really talk," he said. I looked at him and said, "We did talk, and you made it clear I was never your first choice." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I got into my car and drove away, not looking back. The first night in my new apartment was strange. The silence was unfamiliar, and there were no familiar footsteps or the low murmur of someone else moving through the rooms. But I slept better than I expected. The next morning, the messages from Ethan started again. He cycled through emotions, from pleading to accusing. I didn't respond. By day 3, he started telling people I'd abandoned him, that I'd thrown away our marriage without warning. I heard it through mutual friends, who would ask me carefully worded questions. I'd tell them the truth calmly. He reconnected with his ex, told me marrying me was a mistake, so I left. A week later, the lawyer served the separation papers. Ethan had 30 days to respond. That's when the panic really set in. He showed up at my apartment complex twice, but security turned him away. He left voicemails, crying, angry, and then pleading again. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. 2 weeks in, he stopped contacting me directly. I heard he'd moved in with his mother, that he was devastated. 3 weeks after I left, my lawyer called. He wants to contest the separation. He wants counseling. Another chance, she said. I said immediately, no. She paused and asked, "You're sure?" I said, yes. File for divorce. Irreconcilable differences, fair split of assets, no alimony, clean break. She filed the next day. Ethan spiraled after that. He tried to control the narrative online, posting vague messages about betrayal and loyalty. I didn't engage. When friends asked, I'd tell them the same thing: I wasn't his first choice. I removed myself from the competition. 4 weeks later, he finally signed. Mediation was surprisingly uneventful. He agreed to buy me out of the house. I kept my car, my furniture, and half the savings. I later found out through mutual friends that things with his ex hadn't worked out. She'd recently come out of her own divorce and was enjoying her freedom. Ethan was just one of several people she was seeing. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that fateful night. By most standards, it was fast. But we had no children, no tangled businesses, and no reason to keep circling a truth we both already knew. In the months since, I've settled into my new life. I have new routines, like morning walks and therapy every Wednesday evening. I buy groceries for one person, and this space truly feels like mine. Therapy has helped me realize that I didn't just lose a marriage, I lost the version of myself who kept shrinking to make room for someone else's uncertainty. About 2 months after the divorce, Ethan reached out with a message: "Can we talk? I need closure." I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Closure isn't a conversation someone earns after they've already shown you who you were to them. Someone recently asked me if I regret how I handled everything. I don't. Because the truth is, Ethan didn't want to fix our marriage. He wanted to keep me as a safety net while he explored whether something better existed. I spent 9 years with a man who quietly compared me to a past he never let go of. I refuse to be anyone's second choice. I'd rather be alone than be someone's backup plan. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like freedom.